Hello, this is the Mike Siver Show, and tonight we're going to be talking about repairing broken adults. And we've been doing this for a series here lately, and one show that we've done has got a lot of feedback. It's called The Sponge, and it's a chapter out of my book that I've written about why did I do that, and you'll be able to see the book here in a little bit. But why did I do that? Ask the question that we all ask ourselves many, many times throughout our life, every time we get into a little bit of trouble. Why did I do that? Why did I do this? And hopefully by writing the book, I've given us some insight into why we do that. And then some thought-provoking questions at the end of each chapter to help you understand why you do the things you do. I've written a couple books, as you've seen in the front here, and what role did I play? You know, every time we get into trouble at some, whatever the sort might be, a speeding ticket even, or something other that silly, we don't seem to ask ourselves, okay, I'm in this kind of trouble. I got stopped for speeding or turning without using a signal or whatever, something silly. I'm mad at the cops for doing that to me. But do we ask ourselves, what role did I play in getting myself in this situation? And we don't ask ourselves those questions very often either. And if we do ask the question, we don't really want to hear the answer. But the chapter on the sponge talks about environmental learning and what we are like when we're born. Now, I've got 3 containers here on the table. One of the containers is full of a colored liquid, it's water, with just some food coloring in it, and then 2 are clear. Now, along with that, I have a sponge, and this is a brand new sponge just out of the packet, and I relate this to a newborn infant or a newborn baby. The sponge is going to be immersed in whatever environment that it's born into or raised into, whatever family the child or infant is put into. The colored water is the family or the environment as it's growing up, or at different times during our lives, we may get put into different environments, and we have to learn to adapt to that environment. Could be the military, could be a boarding school, it could be a different type of unique job that requires special skills, whatever it might be, that is our environment. Now, when we're very young, we don't have a choice of our environment. We're put into it whether we like it or not. And if we were to take a new baby, like this new sponge, and we were to go ahead and put it in the environment. Now, this sponge is not selectively soaking up the good stuff and leaving the bad stuff, or the bad stuff and leaving the good stuff. That sponge is absorbing the entire environment. Whatever's going on around it, whatever's going on in that environment, that sponge, like a child, is absorbing. And eventually, whatever that sponge absorbs is going to come back out. Now, if that's a lot of screaming and hollering, cursing, you wonder why young kids curse and swear. If there's a disrespect, then it's disrespect that comes out. If it's a man disrespecting a woman or the mother or whatever, then normally the boy children will disrespect. And not all cases. This is not across the board. This is in most cases, not every case. A male child in an environment where the father or the male leader will abuse or disrespect the woman of the house or the mother, then that's what that child will probably end up doing. But we don't pay attention to that as parents with young children, because we hope they're going to grow up okay. The sad part about it is, if it's a female child and seeing the male role model in the family abuse the female adult in the family, a lot of young female children will grow up thinking that's the way it's done. Men will abuse me or disrespect me or whatever when I become a woman. And we know that's so wrong, but we don't teach that. We might talk it, but a picture's worth 1,000 words. So you might say to your daughter, the mother, well, you shouldn't allow men to disrespect you, you shouldn't allow men to abuse you, and while at the same time you're letting it happen, for whatever reason, your daughter or the young child in the home, the female, is not going to believe you, because they're going to see what happens. Now, the sad part about that is, and especially for boys, and for women as well, but mostly for boys, if a boy, and we talked about this on several shows, and this seems to be the most attractive one, it's sad to say, but that's what it is. We get a lot of feedback on some of these comments. A boy seeing a father or a male role model in the home abuse the female in the home won't do that while he's growing up. He won't do that as he's a young boy dating, going out with girls, getting to college, after college, when he gets engaged. He still doesn't disrespect or abuse women. What he's learned is that you can do that when you become the head of house or the husband. So not until he gets himself into that position does that long memory that's sunk in the back of his head come forward. Now that I'm the head of the house, I'm the boss, and I will disrespect you, abuse you, get what I want, or there'll be serious consequences for you if you don't. And so many times we've heard it said, or we've heard it said ourselves, that he was a nice guy while we were dating. He was a wonderful, attentive fiance. But something happened after we got married. He changed. I don't understand it. I don't know what happened. Well, a lot of times the answer to that question is that's what he saw happening in that position. So when that man becomes a husband, becomes a role model, becomes the leader of the home, he now is allowed to do what he learned as an infant. So now we take the sponge, and we take it and we move it to a clean environment. We try to move it to a clean environment. And maybe this is a child that's gone from a foster home to another home, or gone to stay with some friends. So we take the sponge and we put it in a clean environment. And we start to work on the sponge to clean the sponge. Or it could be we work on the child to try and clean the child and change the attitude of the child. Hopefully it's not reform school or juvenile detention or even worse, a jail. But what we see is happening, not that the sponge is being cleaned, but the new environment's being dirtied. And a lot of times we look at that as saying, oh yeah, but some of the dirt came out of the child. Yes, he did, but that dirty environment was his comfort zone. That's what he grew up in. That's what he understands. That's what he knows is going to happen tomorrow. That's what he knows what's going to happen if he does this or does that. He knows he's going to get a spanking, he's going to get hollered at, he's going to be sent to his room, he's going to get restricted. He understands the consequences in this environment. When a child moves to a new environment, he doesn't understand the consequences. He doesn't know what's going to happen. So what a lot of children try and do is make the new environment like the old environment. And they'll keep testing the waters and keep testing and testing and testing until they either become comfortable with the new environment or they make the new environment like the old environment. And they still are disrespectful, they still are difficult to deal with, their grades may not be improving in school, things may continue to be the same with that child, because in his mind he's still in the old environment. Now if we move the child to new environments and new environments and new environments, then eventually he won't have the same old thoughts in his head. So now we have still a little bit of the old stuff coming out, but not very much. Now this could go on for time and time and time. Now, we're not going to move every child to a new home all the time they're misbehaving. That just doesn't happen. This is a big thing that adoption agencies deal with all the time, trying to find a suitable home that can deal with the child. A lot of times they're very hard to deal with because the new parents may know some, but they don't know all the history of the child and why the child's behaving the way it is. And it takes a special, and my hat is off to, and God bless foster parents who can learn and tolerate and deal with out-of-control children. Because that has got to be one of the hardest jobs in the world. And I really respect them for that. They must get their buttons pushed every day. So I have my hats off to them. But when you want to have a child change its attitude or change its way of life or its behaviors from a not such a nice environment, it takes a lot of education. And it takes a lot of community to help that child, because sometimes the parents may have been in this dirty water when they were children. Or at least one of the parents might have been. It might have been both parents. You never know. So if you're raised in that environment, there's no other option but to raise your child in the same environment because that's all you know. Now, not everybody's condemned to that life, because we all know there's something better out there. No matter what environment we grew up in, we know there's something better. So we work on that, and we change our environment because we have a choice. Well, my dad did this to my mom, so I'm never going to do that. I'm going to be a different type of father, different type of husband. Now, where's he going to learn that? Where's the child, the boy child, going to learn to be different from his dad? We pray that there may be some other male role models that he may go to. It may be other fathers of friends who he sees are different from his dad. The courage it takes, though, for a young boy to go to another strange man and say, I want to learn how to be different. Us older men in the community, we actually see that happening. We know our neighbors. We know whose men are good men. We know whose men are questionable. And we know some men who are downright dangerous. It's upon us, and I'm going to take us back in time, to step in. The old saying, it takes a community to raise a child. Well, that's true. It doesn't happen anymore because it doesn't seem to affect, and we get so much trouble when we interfere with somebody else's family. Well, there's a reason we do that. And I'm old enough to have come from an environment where I got jerked home by the ear by people I didn't even know. If they knew where I lived, took me home and told my mom what I was up to. Did I like that? Of course not. But I knew in the back of my head everybody was watching. And that was a good environment, a safe environment for my mom to raise children and for me to be raised in. Did I appreciate it at the time? Absolutely not. I didn't want people looking at me, checking me out, telling my mom what I was doing. But I grew up with a healthy respect for authority, a healthy respect for the community. I don't know if that exists today. I'm going to sit here and say that it's not, because we see TV on the news every night about different shootings and stuff going on. We're going to talk about that in the next segment, which will be on in about another 3 or 4 minutes. So we got about 45 seconds left on this particular show. But I get this particular sponge demonstration, I try to do as often as I can, because it shows visually what I try to explain verbally. And this is not a game. This is serious. That dirty water here is and are to this day still families that live like that. And their children are born in that. All right. With that, I'm going to stop this particular segment. Thank you very much for your attention. I appreciate it. Look forward to seeing everybody in about another couple of minutes. Take care and God bless.